So this video is just going to be a quick PSA on damage testing. Recently I've been seeing a lot of damage testing with Lord of Wolves on the Conflux Lost Sector boss Carl, and started realizing something when doing some of my own damage testing a couple months ago. Carl's not a boss, he's a major. Usually the rationale I see from people who use Carl is that even if he takes different damage numbers, they're all relative and can be compared to other damage testing on the same boss. However, this logic is fairly flawed, since it assumes that all weapons have the same damage buff or penalty on Carl as opposed to other bosses, which just isn't true. Shotguns and snipers, among other weapons, deal significantly more damage to majors, meaning the numbers acquired through Carl testing with shotguns and snipers are inflated, and much higher than they would be in a boss damage scenario in a raid. In this video, I'm going to test how big these damage discrepancies are to see if testing on Carl does make a noticeable error in your results. To start off, I'm going to do damage testing on 3 bosses. I'll be using the Bunker E15 Lost Sector boss, which is a good baseline from year 4 that has pretty relevant damage numbers, and can be accessed fairly easily for testing purposes. Savathun, a more realistic damage scenario that's more similar to raid bosses that people would actually be using their weapons on. And Carl, which is currently a very popular Lost Sector boss that's really a major enemy. I'm going to be doing all of my testing with body shots to make sure that crit modifiers won't be a factor in this testing, and all of my testing weapons will be sitting at 1580 power to make sure that power isn't a factor either. I'll be taking a baseline damage number with a primary weapon, and all of my other tested weapons are going to be set as a multiple of that baseline damage number. For example, we won't say that a rocket launcher does, say, 35,000 damage, but instead we'll say that it does 85 times the baseline, so we can compare to see how much each weapon increases relative to the rest. Our baseline will be a shot from funnel web, and the rest of our damage numbers will be described as some multiple of that funnel web shot. The weapons that I'll be testing are Palmyra B, a precision frame rocket launcher, Reckless Endangerment, a lightweight frame shotgun, Reed's Regret, a precision frame heavy linear fusion, Defiance of Yasmin, an adaptive frame sniper, and Cry of Mutiny, an adaptive frame heavy grenade launcher. I've ensured that none of these weapons have damage perks or mods on. To start off, let's test on the Bunker E15 boss. This guy is a boss since he can't be finished and automatically breaks out of freeze. Our funnel web baseline hits for 720 damage to the body. Reed's Regret hits for 15,793 per body, meaning it deals 21.93 times the baseline. Our shotgun hits for 2387 per pellet on a body shot, meaning that each pellet hits for 3.31 times the baseline. Our rocket launcher hits for 54,951 on the explosion and 15,682 on the impact, and combined, the total damage for the rocket is 7633, meaning the rocket ends up doing 98.1 times the baseline. Our grenade launcher hits for 24,628 on the explosion and 5732 on the impact, which results in a total of 3360 per shot, resulting in 42.16 times the baseline. And finally, our sniper hits for 7148 per body shot, leading to 9.92 times the baseline. Now that we've got our Bunker E15 numbers, let's compare to Savathun, and she's going to better represent how our testing numbers will translate into a raid scenario. Our funnel web baseline hits for 346 per body shot. Our Reeds hits for 7576 per body shot, meaning that it deals 21.89 times the baseline. Our shotgun deals 1145 damage per pellet on a body shot, meaning it takes 3.3 times the baseline per pellet. Our rocket hits for 25,398 on the explosion and 75,23 on the impact, totaling to 33,881, and this correlates to a 97.92 times the baseline. Our sniper hits for 3429 damage per body shot, leading to 9.91 times the baseline. And finally, our GL hits for 11,814 on the explosion and 2750 on the impact, totaling to 14,564 damage per shot, which is 42.09 times the baseline. To compare our values, we can see that despite the numbers being wildly different between bosses, the comparative values for the baseline are in fact very close to each other, only being off by a margin of error around 0.1 to 0.2% at most, which we can attribute to damage number rounding. Next, we're going to gather data on Carl, the Conflux Lost Sector boss. Carl is a major, not a boss, so we should expect to see some discrepancies between damage numbers, since weapons like shotguns and snipers are known to scale their damage differently based on enemy type. We can tell that Carl's a boss since he doesn't automatically break out of being frozen, and he can be finished. Our funnel web baseline hits for 801 to the body. Reeds hits for 17,298 on a body, correlating to 21.59 times the baseline. Our shotgun hits for 2887 per pellet on a body, correlating to 3.60 times the baseline per pellet. Our rocket hits for 61,155 on the explosion and 17,453 on the impact, totaling to 78,608 in total, leading to 98.13 times the baseline. Our grenade launcher hits for 28,725 on the explosion and 66,86 on the impact, resulting in 35,411 total, or 44.2 times the baseline. Finally, our sniper hits for 86,17 on a body, leading to 10.75 times the baseline. And upon comparing the values from Carl to the values of the other two, we can see evidence of exactly what I was talking about before we did the testing. Although the rocket launcher and the linear were pretty consistent across all bosses, only having relative differences of about 0.04 and 1.5% respectively, the other 3% were wildly different. Our reeds had a 1.3% difference, our shotgun had a 9% difference, our rocket launcher had a 0.21% difference, our grenade launcher had a 5% difference, and our sniper had an 8.4% difference. Using a major to test weapon damage simply is not accurate if your purpose is to find the best boss damage weapons. From this testing, we found that the same weapon types scale their damage differently based on the type of enemy. If you frequently test on Carl in the Conflux Lost sector, you could potentially be misleading your viewers, your friends, or even yourself. Even if all of your testing is done on the same boss, some of your weapons will have inflated damage numbers, leading you to possibly ranking them higher or lower in comparison to other weapons with different enemy-specific damage scaling. The reason why I'm posting this now is due to Lord of Wolves. I've been seeing a ton of videos lately about the Lord of Wolves rework, and many of them do their testing on the Conflux Lost sector boss. And upon testing it for myself, I found that Lord of Wolves does indeed do more damage to majors than bosses, approximately 8.5% more. Percent differences hovering around 8 to 10% don't seem like a lot on paper, but remember that these numbers from testing videos are used in future videos for comparison, and that these effects can compound whenever they're stacked together. Just one or two artificially inflated numbers used in calculations can quickly add up to high percent error and invalidate your testing. In fact, if we want to talk statistics, a statistic or parameter with a percent error of greater than 5% or an alpha value greater than 0.05 is usually considered to be unusual or unreliable. When we're talking about major versus boss damage testing, the numbers we found in this video well more than exceed that number. So do yourself a favor and just find a new place to test. Just make sure that the boss automatically breaks out of stasis freeze first and can't be finished, since that's a surefire way to test to see if an enemy is a boss or a major. I like to use the Bunker E15 Lost sector since it's pretty quick to get to the boss, and the boss has a good amount of health. But realistically, anything in the Throne World, Europa, and a few others are safe. Of course, if your aim is to see how strong weapons are in comparison to other weapons on a major enemy, then sure, this works great, but if you're trying to test it for usage on a boss, your data is going to be flawed. Please like and subscribe if you like what I do, and I'll see you in the next one.